Hi everyone. So in this video, we're going to implement a Spring MVC application. Spring MVC application. We already discussed that theoretically how a Spring MVC works. So normally, based on the request is coming from the client, it will take the HTTP request. And you know that that request always consists like in the form of URL, in the form of URL, like a so what is the host and at which port that application is running, and so what is the resource. Let us take it's a home page. So then directly the controller will not give. So there is a dispatcher servlet. We can also call it as a front controller. There is a dispatcher servlet. What this dispatcher servlet will do with the help of handler mapping, it will take the information from handler mapping. Based on the input request, the dispatcher servlet first connect that handler mapping, and then it will release the corresponding controller. So what that controller will do? That controller will give the information to the model. I mean, the processed information, it will set to the model. It will set to the model. Better here we can say that it will set the information to the model. This one. After setting that information, that controller will give the response back to the dispatcher servlet with the view name. Quickly, I'm explaining that with the view name. So based on that view name, so what it will do means what? It will connect with the view resolver. Here I'll write first. It will connect with the view resolver with the extension, and as well as that based on the view name, right? It will connect with the view resolver, and based on that, the dispatcher servlet finally will give that view. Then that view will get the information from the model. From the model, it will get the information, and finally it will give that response back to that one. That HTTP response you will get. HTTP response. This one I have already explained in the previous example, right? The same thing, just one time I have explained. Now we are developing the application by implementing this concept. For example, here, so what is that application we are going to develop? I just want to display the information which is collecting from the JSP page. From the JSP page. This one is a suppose home.jsp page or HTML page, anything. This is input form. Just enter details. Enter details. And here it is, we ask, enter your first name, enter your first name, enter your last name, enter your last name, and email, and simply submit. One button we are giving. One button we are giving. And this information is we need to display as a view. Simply is a success page. It's a JSP page, or with the theme leaf, we can go with that HTML page also. Anything we can use. Here it is, just we are displaying all the details what you have entered. First name is, last name is, as well as email. This is a simple example I'm going to explain using this Spring MVC. All right. So with the help of a Spring initializer, first we are creating that Spring initializer. As we are opening that, start Spring IO. And here it is. As we are creating that Maven project and Java. It's by default 3.4.1 Spring Boot version it is taking. And here it is that we are taking that example, or for example, domain name, I'm changing like just Ameerpet. And here it is, I'm giving this artifact is a MVC because we are going to develop that MVC application. So that package name will be domain name is ameerpet.mvc like this, and the jar file, and I'm using that 17 version. And now here it is, we need to add some dependencies. Right here it is, the first main dependency. Main dependency is a Spring Web dependency. Spring Web dependency, that one. See here it is, which contains all the RESTful services. Spring MVC, Apache Tomcat as a default embedded container. So normally, so whenever you are developing any servlet based web application, just web application, if you are developing, right, manually, as we are installing that Tomcat server and we deploy applications through Tomcat server. But here it is, automatically it will take that with the help of this one, right? It will take that inbuilt Apache Tomcat server as a just embedded container. For this application only, embedded container will be created. So not only this one, this is just to create a simple applications like Hello World program and displaying some information on the web page and all. If you want to connect with the database. So there is a between API like JDBC API, how we use for connection and all. Here it is in advanced level, we are using the data JPA, data, data JPA, Spring data JPA, that is SQL stores, that is a API, the persistence API using Spring data as well as a Hibernate database. And there's one more thing. So if you have already installed any database, we can use the database, Oracle database or MySQL database as a backend. And instead of that one, right, we can create one database. Like suppose I'll show you, like suppose H2 database is there, H2 database. So what is this one? Look at this with the small 2 MB footprint is nothing but one temporary database we are creating. It is also just working like installation of a database in our system. Now, no need to install anything. Directly, we can use this H2 database. And how to work with this H2 database with the help of a simple URL and everything, I'll explain. Simply, once all the things are ready, just generate. That project is generated in that downloaded, and after that we need to export from that Eclipse. Once the project is downloaded, then we are going to that location, and from here directly we can export the thing. Here it is just WinRAR. Just we are exporting that one, just extracting the files to where directly we are extracting to this Eclipse workspace. Suppose in a C drive, in that users, in my system in Lenovo, Eclipse workspace is there. In that, suppose a boot is a boot. Just I click on that. Okay. I click on that. Okay. So then once it is exported, now here it is. We are just importing that projects. We are importing. So what is that existing Maven project? Existing Maven projects. Just click on next, and it is looking for that directory. Here it is. MVC is there. That MVC we are just selecting the folder. See here it is showing that the pom.xml is already created. Yes. I just finish. So, so now it is, yes, it is importing the Maven project. So let it complete that 100%. But first time whenever it is importing that, because it contains so many jar files and all, that Maven jar files and everything, it will collect all the jar files and it will create. See, it will take some time. So let it complete that 100% so that it will show that all jar files in this one. In this one, here it is showing this like this. Here is a pom.xml, and you know that Maven dependencies, so many Maven dependencies. Now you can see so many Maven dependencies. You can see all these things like Hibernate related things, right? And next one, here it is Spring related things, Spring related, and suppose, right, all these things, Tomcat server, see Tomcat embedded core server, everything, all the things, all the dependencies added, all the dependencies. Now, here it is a project. It is showing the package default. And here it is that automatically that MVC application created. MVC application from where that project starts. Here it is showing that information is a Spring Boot application. From here only that application will run. See here, I'm just checking that that application is working or not by executing this one. By executing this one, just we are executing as a Java application. Simply, see checking that the console, right? See here it is web server failed to start because the port 8080 was already in use. Already in use. The port is already in use. For example, if you want to change the port number once again, and how can we run this application by changing the port number with the help of that application properties we can do like this. Like here it is in a source, in that resources folder, application.properties is there. Application.properties. Here it is showing that some information in application properties, Spring application name is MVC. And here it is, we are adding one more thing in properties. Just that server simply running at which port number you need to specify. As a, I'm just giving that 8081 because 8080 is already running. Okay. So now after that, let me save. After saving that, once again, I'm checking whether this code is executing or not. That application is executing or not. We are checking. If suppose if still this port is also not working, so then we need to change the port number again. But here it is. Now it is a successfully running. Process is running, right? It is executing. That application is executing. This is the simple way of checking that that application is running or not. Then we are adding slowly one by one, one by one. Right. Now I just want to see here we just checked that application is running or not. Now I just want to create a request page, client request page, just like a HTML page or JSP page I'm creating. Uh, so here in the main, we need to create one folder. One folder we are creating, that is, for example, web application. See, why we are creating that folder web application means what? It is just like working like a default folder from which all the HTML files and JSP files, other resources will be collected automatically. It's like a default folder. So everything we have to create in this web application folder only. In this one, I'm just creating one one file, like a JSP file we are creating. One JSP file we are creating. Just I'm giving like home.jsp page. I'm giving home.jsp page. And in this JSP page, I'm just giving that as a simple one, just like h2 tag, welcome to home page. I'm creating this simple information and I'm saving this information. So I have just created one JSP page. But here it is, we cannot run this JSP page directly because already we have discussed in the beginning, whenever a request is coming from the user, the dispatcher servlet first, right, has to open its corresponding controller. So for every request, there should be a controller. So we need to create the controller for this request. It's nothing but for this page, request page. Everything with the help of that controller only. So here it is in that source main.java, in that folder, main folder. Under main folder, we are just creating one package to create the controller. Directly you can create under that MVC package only. But so normally in application, right, they will place all the controllers under the controller package, right? All the views under that views folder, right? And all the DAOs, for example, data access object, any connection with the database and all, the DAO folder we will use to place all the model classes. They will use that model package and all model package. So here we are using that package is a com in that, for example, Ameerpet, in that MVC, in that, for example, controller package I have created. Controller package we have created. So under this controller package, now I'm writing one class. I'm writing one controller class. Is any controller class, you can say that. It's a home controller because it is for home. Na? So I'm just giving that home controller is a name. Home controller I have given. This is the one. This is the one. See, I already told you that controller is there actually is a servlet, but here it is not like that. Not like that. How can you make this? How can you make this controller? It is just a class as of now, but by using the annotation called at the rate controller, then we can make it this controller. Just when you save, actually it has to recognize automatically. It has to recognize. And this one we need to import. Of course, it will take automatically. Now it is what? It's a controller. See, controller always having one action method, just like to get the request and process the request, and for uh, giving the response, there should be an action method like do get and do post. In the same way, here also we need to write one method, action method we need to write. For example, method name is what this controller will do. This controller just to open the home page. Open the home page. Simply I'm writing is a get home is the page. Get home, and it will return that which page? Here it is already there, home.jsp page. Home.jsp page it is returning. And so what is the return type is a string. But remember a very important point here. Here it is home.jsp is not a string. It is not the content. It's a file name. They have given like that by default, whenever you are returning something from the controller, and it will become a resource. If you want to return any string, if you want to return any string, sir, suppose I just want to create one method that has to return string only. I don't want to return any file or something. Then there is a annotation called request body. Request body annotation is there, but as of now it's not required because by default it is working. It is working like that file only. Is working like a file. So first we need to create the controller. Inside that we need to write one action method. It has to return that page, JSP page. But here it is, we need to add as a one more annotation called mapping annotation. So request is a which type? Get or post. Normally here it is a JSP file, we are getting the request. From the client is a get mapping only. So that get mapping we need to specify. And what is the value? Here normally, if it is any other one, we are giving. It's like any other page like, but here it is a home page now. So directly we are giving that slash. Slash is representing that home page. Home page. Here, just we are importing that one. Importing that one. This is the one. Here the all the errors gone. Now we need to execute this one. Just stop the server, and so once again this application properties not at all required, and we are just going to that application and we are executing that application. So once again we are executing that application once that server is ready. When server is running, then we are opening that localhost, and the port number we are giving that 8081. But look at this, whenever I hit, it's not opening that JSP file. Look at this, instead of opening that JSP file, something which is running, I mean something which is downloaded. That file has been downloaded. Is actually it has to open that JSP file because it is returning that home.jsp file. Instead of returning, instead of returning, what is happening? Simply the file is downloading. The file is downloading. Then what we have to do is we need to add one dependencies called Jasper dependencies. We need to add Jasper dependencies. For example, is a Maven repository. Is a Maven repository. In that Maven repository, we need to search for the Tomcat Jasper. Yes, so many Tomcat Jasper are there. But here it is, which one we need to download and we need to add to the pom.xml. That is completely depends on which Tomcat version, I mean that embedded Tomcat server we are using, that we need to check in the dependencies. Is a Tomcat will be there. Tomcat is a 10.1.34. Is a 10.1.34 is a one that we need to get. That we need to get. Tomcat Jasper. Tomcat Jasper. And we need to search for the version. We need to search for the version 10.1.34. 10.1.34 is a 1. Is a 1, and that is a 1. The dependency just we need to copy. That Maven dependency we need to copy. And after that, after that copying that Maven dependency, we need to open that form. In that, all the dependencies we are adding now this one also. And you know that what all the required things it will collect. Now it is building. That application is building. So that is also added. That is also added. Now, after adding that one, just once again, I'm executing that application. I'm executing that application. Once that server is ready, yes, once that server is ready, now here it is the same in the local host. In the local host 8081, we are executing. Now look at this. Whenever we are executing, whenever you are giving that URL, right? So then automatically it is open, it is giving that JSP file. Right? So instead of downloading that JSP file with the help of that Jasper dependency, right? It is giving that one. Just what is the purpose of Jasper means what? That JSP files will be converted into servlets. Servlets, and that servlets will run instead of downloading that file. Here it is okay, just a simple application we have created. But our concept is what? Getting the information from the form. So now in the home.jsp file, right, what we have written before that, just giving a welcome to home page, and I have shown how it is executing. Now it's not like that. I just want to create the form. I want to create the form. This one. Here it is. Just I'm creating this form. Is a form creation. And whenever you submit the form where it has to go and all, I'll explain. The simple one, the text fields we are taking input type is equal to, it's a text file. And I already told you that it's a first name equals to something like a first name we are creating input, and next one is just like a break, and we are creating input type is equal to, again, text, that name equals to is a something like a last name, and break, and next one is a type equals to, is the same text only, just name is a email, is a email we are taking email, and that finally input type is equals to submit, is a submit, just a form we are creating. And you know that the value is also submit. I'm giving like this, submit. But whenever you submit this form, whenever you submit this form, where it has to go is a action, right? So what is that, which action controller should hit, and what is a method? And you know that here it is a form submission means what? Form submission is always post. Just normally I'm just representing with the caps. Method is a post method, because whenever you submit that information, just you are posting the information to that controller. And here we are just giving that add customer. Sir, what is this? It's a URL. Already I have shown handler mapping concept. In handler mapping concept, URL contains what? What is the resource and what is the method, right? What handler mapping will do? With the help of key and value, it will give, according to this URL, which controller should execute and which method should execute. Inside that, which method should execute. That everything you need to implement with the controller. That I'll show. We are just giving some alignment to make this to show that easy. For example, style, we are just aligning the text to the center. The center, just the text we align to that center. We apply that information. And whenever you are showing that, as you are not giving that information, enter first name, second name and all, simply we are giving that placeholder. You know that placeholder. Just here it is. So what is your first name? Here you need to enter. And in the same way that placeholder is a enter your last name. And here it is also placeholder. Just what is your email you need to enter and all. Okay. Now here it is. We already discussed that whenever you submit this, where it has to go. For this URL, you need to write the controller, right? The same controller we are using this one, the same controller. Here it is for get mapping that in home.jsp only we implemented. So whenever you trigger this, now that home.jsp means what? Now it will show this information. But anyway, uh, we will write that post mapping also. Post mapping also, we are just going to discuss. So what is that? What is that post mapping? In this one, we are just writing that how we have written that get mapping. In the same way, we need to write a post mapping we are using. Why? Because whenever you are submitting that form, so automatically post mapping executes. And what is the value? What is the value? So that is already you have written here. It is the same thing. I'm just copy. If I do any mistake, that's why here it is. In this home controller, we are using that one. So nothing but whenever you hit this URL, whenever you hit this URL, then the method it has to execute. Public void, for example, you are adding the customer. So method, we are writing that add customer. Add customer. But here it is. I'm not connecting with the database and I'm not storing into the database table and all. Database table and all. So simply what I'm doing here, simply I'm giving that one message system.out.println. Println. Here it is post mapping method, add customer method executed. What is that meaning? Whenever you are submitting this form, that post mapping is happening. Later, what to do? We will write. Just I'm stop the server. After that, again, I'm executing that, running that application. And once server starts successfully, now suppose if I refresh this page, refresh now what it has to show actually. Previously in the JSP page, I have written that simple one, but now I have given one form. Here it is a first name it is expecting. Is a first name we are expecting. For example, I'm just giving that is a Srinivas. And here it is that name I'm giving that sree@gmail.com. I'm giving simply. And whenever I click on a submit, now it is showing that error message, but no problem. But no problem. Okay. See, here it is. We are not doing anything. Just we are giving one SOP statement, SISO statement, and that we are checking whether that is executed successfully or not. Right? See here, servlet exception came. Okay. But look at this. Add customer method executed successfully. Executed successfully. Now we need to do what is the code we need to write and everything. How can you create the view? How can you display the information on the view? Everything we'll see now. So that message is printing. Now we are checking that. We are checking that uh, we need to get the information because whenever you submit this information, we are just giving some SOP statement and we are checking whether it is executing or not. But how can you get this information with the help of names? And we know that here it is, suppose if it is a servlet request dot a get request parameter is there. Na? In the same way, here also, just at request param. Let me check. At request, at request param is there. At request param and is a string type, is a string type. I'm just giving that first name. First name is one. At request param. So we need to collect in the same way. Now is the same story at request param. At request param. Same is a string is a last name. Next again at request param. At request param string and is a email. We are collecting that information, and after collecting that information we need to display that information. Simply, you know that how to display that first name just with the concatenation and is a last name, the same values what we are using, the same thing we are using, email, their names. So whenever we are executing, let me check once again. Let me check once again. So once it is started, once it is started, I'm just executing this. I'm giving this the name. And whenever you are submitting these details, now the same one, the white label error page is giving. And now in the console, if you check, and we need to check now the details are coming or not. Yes, here it is. Now, what all the details we have provided on the form is coming here. Now, what we have to do? Instead of displaying on the console, instead of displaying on the console, we need to create one JSP page. It's a success JSP page. And we need to create that view and generate that view. From that view, we need to display all these details. So here it is. So whenever you are getting the information on the console, now I just want to display on a success page, like simply on a JSP page. So we are creating that one more JSP page as a something like home.jsp page is already ready. Now we are creating that another page, another JSP file, which is like a success.jsp page, success.jsp page. And here, the same thing we are collecting. I just want to display that information, centered information. I'm not using that a form and all. Just I am removing that everything. And simply I want to display that information. Information is a something like, so what is the first name? What is the first name they entered? And what is the last name? Last name they entered. And next one, what is the email they entered? And finally, that is only three details we need to provide, I think. Email, all these things. But now, how can we execute this JSP page? But see, here it is, sir. What are the values? Already we discussed that. Please don't forget those things. Whenever that controller will give the view, that view is getting the information from the model, right? And it will give the information using expression language. Information using expression language. So that is clearly we discussed right in the theoretical concept. Now, first, here it is in the home controller. Now, we need to we need to change this SOP. We need to change this SOP. It has to send. See what controller will do. Controller giving that information to the view with the help of model. Sir, what is that model? Look at this here, comma, model object they have given directly. Model object. This is the one. Look at this. In this one, look at this. Import model org Spring Framework UI. Spring Framework UI model. This one. Inbuilt, they have given that model class. And simply that information we are adding to the model object. Generally, how you are setting the information, set attribute to the request object, or like a add or set attribute to the session object in servlets concept. In the same way, we are adding that. We are adding that model dot add attribute. Model dot add attribute, and is normally taking two things. Suppose what is that first? That is called first name value. Model dot add attribute is a last, and that is what last name value you are setting. And model dot add attribute is a mail, that is email value you are setting. Email value. But once you set, you have to return. What is it file? Success.jsp file. It will return. And of course, what is the return type? Is a string. Just how it is returning that home.jsp page. Whenever you are using that add customer, first it will show that form, and whenever you submit the form, it will return that JSP page. And now in the JSP page, we are getting the information from the request object using expression language. How can you write? Just a dollar. So what is that? What is that? Simply first. And here it is, dollar last, and dollar is a mail, because for the model object already attributes are there. Already attributes are there. Now simply we are saving everything. Stop the server. Executing that, running that application. Once server is ready, then first it will create that. It will create that first name and is a last name and is a mail. And whenever you are submitting, look at this. We are collecting that information from the client request, and we are displaying with the help of view. Okay, this is the way of creating that simple Spring MVC web application. And in the next video, I'm going to explain the same details. How can we store in the database, like in the H2 database is a temporary online platform, a database, or any other like a MySQL or Oracle database. Suppose if you have already installed, how can we store into that? This is everything I'll explain in the next video. Okay, thank you all.